Neil from Essex here. I am completely out of my league.
Essex, a helping hand with your land.
I have about 2.25 acres of grass that I take care of, and great source for YouTube videos most of the time. But one thing that you often don't see is that I take care of all of my own fertilizing and spraying and that kind of thing. Mostly for cost purposes, but also because I genuinely kind of enjoy it. Over the years, I've had a lot of different equipment that's kind of gotten that done. I started out here with a walk-behind fertilizer spreader like many people would use. Unfortunately, that burned up in a fire. And today I've been using a fertilizer spreader behind the back of my tractor, a 500-pound cone spreader that I can drop on the back of there and run around my yard. I very quickly, though, have found the pros and cons of every one of these things, right? That walk-behind spreader is a lot of work, especially when it's loaded up and you're pushing around 100 pounds worth of fertilizer back and forth here in a while. It's a physical effort. And the cone spreader on the back of my tractor, while it was very inexpensive, it can hold a ton of fertilizer. It's a very economical way in order to get the job done. It lacks any precision whatsoever. It's very difficult to make sure I haven't missed areas. So when I had the opportunity to come out here and try this Stinger Gateway Applicator, I was actually pretty excited, but I'll tell you, never before have I jumped onto a piece of equipment and very quickly felt out of my league. There's a lot of little controls and adjustments that can be done on this machine, so we're going to spend a little bit of time on that today, and you're also going to see me learning how this thing runs for the very first time. So we're starting here with the process that I pretty much understand the best, is putting down granules. So I've taken 2 bags of fertilizer, about 80 pounds, filled up the hopper here, and there's room to go if you wanted more. I take the display down here, and then I hit the impeller function. It tells the computer that I'm ready to spread granules. Now, in order to toggle this on and off, I have a red button up here on my steering sticks that I just press. It automatically opens up the gates and turns the spreader on. And now I can start to make my passes back and forth. It's pretty slick here on the headlands, because what headlands being when I make my rotations around here. On my tractor-mounted spreader, I can't snap the thing on and off quickly enough in order to be able to actually bother to turn it off. So most of the time, once I've opened that thing up, I'm committed, right? I'm driving and I'm spreading until I run out of fertilizer. This, though, it's really easy here. When I get to the end of the passage, I just pop the button and it automatically shuts the gates. The adjustments for the impeller and my spread width are just as easy. So I can hold down the impeller button here and press my arrows to turn up the speed of the impeller and increase my spread width. It was kind of handy because here you can see I just mowed yesterday. You can still see the stripe lines in the yard. And so I was able to go and I can use my stripe lines to make sure that I cover everything. So I was able to take that impeller speed and dial it to the point that I'm getting the perfect width of spread to match my lines for mowing. So it's going to help me make sure I put this down evenly. Attached to the bottom side here of the hopper is a vibrator that keeps those granules moving freely. If they happen to bridge, that should be able to rotate and shake that thing loose in order to keep it flowing. In the point that the automatic one doesn't do it adequately enough, there's a little button here that I can press down here on the control pad to pulse that function, to be able to have it shake extra hard if it needs to knock something loose. The other neat thing that I can do here is that this spreading function here is tied to my control stick, so in the event that I stop, it automatically stops spreading again, and as I start driving again, it turns right back on. So if I have to stop to talk to somebody or something, I'm not worried about over-applying as I'm driving back and forth. Another issue that I've had here is that I do a really poor job of being able to calculate the amount that I want to put down for my anticipated pounds per acre. Usually I just look at the back of the bag and say, well, I should spread this whole bag out across this area, and I go out and start driving. This, though, is smart enough to be able to have some presets on it that you can go through and select your spreading rate, and then that's going to change how far those gates open up. So then if I need to have a higher or a lower rate, it's able to be calculated right here on the display. And I believe it'll also vary for speed too. So if I start driving slow, those gates will start to close off a little bit so that it's not over applying. Here on my last pass here along the driveway, I only need to discharge on my left-hand side. If you look in the bottom of the hopper, there's actually two different gates, and that is two gates give you the ability to have a selection to be able to discharge to the left, to the right, or across the whole spread area. You've got 22-gallon tank down here that you can mix up with any number of different lawn-based chemicals, and then the computer on here is going to help make operating this a lot easier. Using the display here, you can pick any number of presets, the number of gallons per 1,000 square feet that you want to put down, and dial everything up and down from the display. You're going to notice I've got 3 nozzles across the front here that are actually doing the application. In this case, it's just water. But it's going to have some smarts in it to make it easier to use. As I slow down, the amount of spray that it puts down also slows down. So it's able to vary the rate probably more precisely than what the granule spreader does, which is pretty cool. It's most obvious here when you look on the driveway and I'm going back and forth, I can see how where my speed changes that it places the spray where you want. You're gonna watch it, we're gonna do a little strike. So right now, those nozzles, just like you can direct the granule hopper, you can direct the spray as well. So right now I'm spraying the whole area. If I press to the left, I'm gonna run the left nozzle, the right is gonna run the right nozzles. So you're putting the spray exactly where you want it. So in addition to the nozzles across the front for doing a broad-based application, you also have this wand on the machine as well. This wand can be toggled on and off with a little switch down here by your knee. It's going to turn on or off with a little valve here that's going out to the hose. Now this is where I found probably my first complaint with this machine. I broke it. As you're driving along with the sprayer, this is fine if you're on this side over here, but if you have to go to your left-hand side and you reach over here to spray on this side, you pass the hose right over top of the muffler of the machine. Now they've got a little guard here that says hot on the top of it in order to protect you, but I was able to get it close enough there to the muffler that I actually melted a hole into this hose. So that's a little tricky. Fine on your right hand, no concerns at all, but if you pass over to the left, you got to watch where this hose goes because it's in an area that could be melted. I do think if you went through and you upgraded this with, say, something a little bit heavier duty that's going to take that heat a little bit better, be less of a concern, but I very quickly, within about the first 2 minutes of driving this thing around, managed to melt that hose. If we look at the machine here itself, this is an impressive little piece of kit, right? I think it's so cool when this stuff is like so purpose-built for particular applications, and you can see so much of that right here. If we start here at the front of the machine and work our way back, we have standard T-jet nozzles. If you needed to replace these or swap them out for a different size, they're very easy to come by. We'd have hundreds of them on our shelves. You're gonna notice the axle back here is stainless. That's because many of these chemicals can be corrosive. They're really hard on the machine. So that piece of metal that's right behind the nozzles themselves is stainless in order to be able to hold up to that. If we work our way back here, we have the hydraulic pump here that does the drive. It's a Parker hydraulic pump that feeds 2 wheel motors on the back. You have a little hydraulic reservoir up here on the top. The engine is a Kohler Command Pro Series engine, and the one thing that we like on those is that it has a fuel shutoff. If you're gonna park the thing for a while, shutting off that fuel can keep you from ruining a carburetor. Back on the inside of it here, there's a cool little parking brake. As soon as you get off the machine and shut it off, a couple of seconds will go by and you'll hear a whining sound. That's the machine's electronic parking brake setting itself. So if you're gonna be going on and off of a trailer all the time and you're a landscaper, you've got a good positive parking brake here that maintains itself. The little computer that runs the dash up here is located right here above the hydraulic pump. Simple little sealed assembly with some wiring harnesses going up into it. Any kind of filters and stuff that I noticed on here, say for the engine, or this one right here that's the strainer for the hydraulic tank, or in easy to get to locations. And if you had to dig around this machine at all, mechanically, nothing is like covered up with shields and hoses and that kind of stuff. It should be a very easy machine to work on. So that's a little bit on the Stinger Gateway Applicator. Coming at this, having never run a piece of equipment like this before, it was really surprising to me how quickly this made me a better operator, right? I really always struggle with figuring out things like rates of the right stuff to put down, and being able just to simply dial those things up on the screen makes it a lot easier to be able to kind of get a good estimation of what that should be. And then when you're actually operating the piece of equipment, being that it pays attention if you're driving or not, and giving you the ability to go through and select where you want to put material down is going to make sure that even when you've got that rate select, that you're actually doing it properly. So I've struggled with these things personally. I know how hard this can be to do, and no doubt if you're a commercial landscaper, you have ongoing work for this kind of thing, this is going to make you a lot more productive, and also make sure that you're putting down the proper amounts of material in the right place. So if you're shopping for a piece of equipment like this and we can help, or if you have parts or service needs for a machine you've already got, give us a call at Messick's. We're available at 800-222-3373 or online at messick's.com.